Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jade, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of January. The first book that I read in January was a Darcy Coates book, and it was Dead of Winter. This was not my favorite Darcy Coates book. In fact, this is probably my least favorite Darcy Coates that I've read so far. I found that I just wanted to finish this book. I just wanted to finish it and be done with it. The book was uncomfortable and gross. There was a claustrophobic aspect to the book, and it was gory, which I did like. It was the most gory Darcy Coates book that I've read so far. The book was predictable. I guessed the plot twist early in the book. I was not surprised at all, which surprised me. I also didn't find the protagonist very believable. Things that were going on in the book, I was like, I don't think you would actually act this way or react this way. She didn't seem real. She did not seem very believable. And I kept thinking that throughout the book. The atmosphere was good. I liked the time that it was set. It was cold and they're all trapped. I liked that. That's what I wanted from the book. But it was not nearly as thrilling as her other books, not nearly as good. So I gave this a 3-star. I would have given it 2, but I did like the gory, gross parts of it. So it is a 3, but I guess the plot twist. I don't think it just wasn't very exciting. So that was the first book that I read, and it was disappointing. The second book that I read was Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I'm gonna read the back and then I'll give my thoughts. Once a hero arose to save the world. He failed. Ever since, the world has been a wasteland of ash and mist, controlled by the immortal emperor known as the Lord Ruler. But hope survives. A new uprising is forming, one built around an ultimate caper. The cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind and the determination of an unlikely heroine, a street urchin who must learn to master the power of a mistborn. I liked it. I liked this book. It was a really good introduction for me into Brandon Sanderson's work. I know he is a very big fantasy writer, and when I see his books, those are books that are intimidating because, if you look at some of his larger works, oh my gosh, now I can't remember the name. If I remember, I'll say it, but he has some really long fantasies. So they're fantasy books that I look at and I'm like, would love to read that, but those are intimidating. So I read this, and I have the mass paperback, which I actually really like. I like holding this tiny book. The world building is very detailed and complex. It can be a lot, but I really appreciate all of the thought that went into his world. And I think he's known for his amazing world building. And getting to know, learning how a mistborn's powers work and how they have to consume different metals and then can alter emotions. They can kind of repel off of metal and pull metal. There's so many details that go into how a mistborn's powers work. And it's really interesting. It is just a slower book because there's a lot of world building. I think I'm used to fantasy books that are just a more fast-paced and the world building is quicker. But that's not a bad thing, because I've read fantasy books where I've wished the world building would have taken longer so I could actually envision this world that I'm investing so much time into. But it just was a lot of world building, and I think I'm just used to books that are just faster paced. So for that reason, I did give it a 4 because I wish it were just a little faster. But that being said, I really loved our main character, and we're reading from 2 point of views, the master and the apprentice, and you love both characters. And we're also reading from the perspective of the emperor, who is the villain. It is a good story, a really good story, and the world building's super good. I wish we could have just gotten there a little bit faster. But I do plan to continue this series. It's just not in my immediate plans right now. I have a lot of other books that I'm planning to read, but I will continue with the series, and I do plan to buy them all in mass paperback just because I like how they look. Okay, The next book that I read was Glass Sword. I finished the series in this month. If you watched my review of my books that I read in 2023, I loved Red Queen. I thought it was so good. I really, really loved the first book. I'm very conflicted by this series because I think that the first book is 5-star, none of the other books are that good. This book started off exciting. I'm gonna have like a spoiler-free version and then a spoiled version. This is the spoiler-free version. This book started off with a bang, super exciting. Then it died off and got very boring until the end. And it lost me. Like this book, I almost did not continue with the series, but at the end, I was like, okay, I do want to know what happened, so I did continue and finish it. But this one was not nearly as good as the first, and for that reason, I did give it 3 stars. It kept my attention, like the beginning and the end were the only reason this got a 3-star. It almost got a 2, but okay. I'm gonna give my spoiler version now. This book became a recruiting book. They were recruiting more half-bloods for their army, and I just didn't enjoy that whole part of the book. I was like, I don't want this to become like we're recruiting the Avengers. I don't know. It felt kind of silly. This book started off exciting, and then it just felt silly. Yeah, so it became redundant and boring. But then at the end, we started to read more from our main villain, and it got interesting again, and she was captured by Maven at the end, and Maven is my favorite character, the villain. So then I really wanted to know what happened once she was captured, but they're just recruiting half-bloods and like building their army. I didn't like it, so 3 stars. If you hear fireworks, I'm sorry. The Super Bowl is happening today. I don't even know what time that's at, but I think people are like popping fireworks for the Super Bowl. Then I read King's Cage. Now, I'm super conflicted about this book as well. This book was better and more exciting than the second one. I read this so fast. I read like 150 pages in one day. My goal is always 100 pages. Like I try for 100. Sometimes I only reach 75, but I was just breezing through this book. I enjoyed the story. It was like getting better, but it could have still been better. Okay, I'm gonna give my spoiler version now. The interaction between Maven and Mare could have been so much better. There was one scene where they were like talking in the book, or I mean they spoke quite a bit within the book, but their interactions were the most exciting part of the book. I just think that their story could have been taken so much further. It's like this book was onto something. I feel like we were starting to get there. We were starting to get to a really good, interesting story, and then it didn't continue. It got exciting. You know, she was captured by Maven, who is our main villain. We're learning that Maven his brain has been altered by his mother. She has like destroyed parts of his brain using her power, and that's super interesting. And so I just feel like we could have gone so much further with Maven, and we didn't. So this was a 3.5. I gave it 3.5 stars because I did breeze through it. Like I did enjoy the story, so I think it was better than the second book, but it still could have been better. Then I read Warstorm, which is the last book in the series. And both of these are thick, but this was thick. I really hoped that this book would redeem the story, it would finish it off really well, and it didn't. Some stuff that happened just felt out of character for some of these characters. I felt like, and this might just be me, but I feel like I rarely feel that about characters, like that things were out of character for them, and it just didn't make sense. Some stuff just didn't make sense to me. And I was glad that I read it. Like I wanted to finish the series, but again, like the ending was not good. It just could have been better. And we're reading from a lot of point of views in this book, which I'm fine with. Like I don't mind reading from multiple POVs, but two female characters, I just didn't care. I was like, we could read from much more interesting characters than those two, or have their parts of the book shorter, because it just felt unnecessary to read from their point of view. So I wanted to love this series. I thought this was going to be like maybe not Hunger Games, level for me, but I thought this was going to be along the lines of like The Cruel Prince. So off. The Cruel Prince is like amazing. This just, it wasn't great. To me, this was a 3-star or 3.5-star series. I'm not sorry I read it. It just wasn't great. I'm gonna give spoilers now. Okay, like I already said, Maven, the villain, is the most complex and interesting character in the entire series. I liked Maven more than Mare, like our protagonist, our main character. He was so interesting. But we hear mostly from Evangeline and Iris, who are also kind of villains, I guess. But this book, I feel, became more about Evangeline kind of like coming out and finding herself. And we lost sight of the main point of the series. I feel like this just like veered off, like it just went a weird direction where we're not even focused on our main characters anymore. It's like all about Evangeline and her coming out. And I'm sorry, but the love story between Mare and Cal was so dumb. Like their relationship building, like what happened to that? Like I don't understand. It was so weak. I feel like their relationship was so weak, and I felt more from her and Maven, like such a deeper connection, even though Maven is the villain, like he felt for her, like he loved her, and Cal's just kind of like there. He's just kind of there, and we don't really know what's going on. It's so frustrating because I don't know, from the first book, we know that there's going to be kind of this love triangle between them. But from the start, we can just feel that Maven feels very deeply for her, and Cal loves her, I guess. But their story just, I didn't like it. I did not like their love story. Also, I felt like some things were a little bit weird that like Mare is not a part of their, okay. I just thought it was kind of weird when they would have like council meetings or like the kings and queens, like they would have these big meetings and Mare would have such a big voice in those meetings. I was like, she's not a leader. She's not a queen. I don't know. I felt like it was kind of weird that she had such a large voice when there were like generals and like kind of a president, I guess. I don't remember what he was called. And then kings and queens, and she would like address all of them in these meetings. Like she had such a large voice where I just didn't think that that would be realistic. I mean, I know this is a fantasy book, but just some of those conversations, I was like, this seems weird that they would like listen to her. Why would they listen to her? She has powers, but why does she have such a large voice? And we were robbed of the ending. How she killed Maven at the end, I was like, what? That was so like anticlimactic. Like it just, how she killed him, we didn't even like, we heard after the fact how she killed him. And even then I was like, what? What happened? Ugh. Sorry, I have very big feelings about this series. I mean, I invested so much time into this series. And again, this is a 3.5-star series. It is not a 4. It's definitely not a 5, but I really, really loved the first book, so I wanted to finish it so I could have my thoughts. I wanted to know if this was gonna like really become good at the end, and it was disappointing, and I'm sorry to all the people that love this series. Just, it could have been better. But all is not lost, because I read an amazing book after that series that ended the month off really strong. I finally read Red Rising, which is kind of interesting because Red Rising and Red Queen, they're kind of like the idea is a little bit similar. A little bit. Not super similar, but like even like Red Rising in Red Queen, they're gonna, red will rise. It seems like some of the lines were like taken from this book or something. It was kind of funny. I'm gonna read the little summary in the back. His wife taken, his people enslaved, driven by a longing for justice and the memory of lost love, Darrow will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if he must become one of them to do so. Oh my gosh. This book, the first 5-star of the year, so good. Like, I thought I had an idea of what this book was about. This book is insanely good. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I was not surprised because everyone raves about this series. Everyone loves this series. And knowing that, it made me nervous to go into this book, but I'm so glad I finally got around to it, and because no regrets. The story is so gripping. From the start, you are hooked. We love our main character, and there's like not a dull moment within this series. Like, I'm on this second book. I guess I haven't finished all of them, but the first and second book, there's like not a dull moment. The book is so fast paced, which I love. And I really enjoy how smart our main character is. Like, Darrow is so smart and his story is so good. This book is like the Hunger Games, but like on steroids. It's very, very high stakes. Hunger Games, not that Hunger Games is not high stakes, but it's different. It's if you like the Hunger Games, you will love this. The book can be a lot. There were times where I had to go back and reread because I feel like I missed really important information, and you have to like really pay attention. So much happens really fast, and there were just some times that I was lost. There are also a lot of characters. Not multiple POVs, but there are just a lot of characters within his story that it can get a little confusing when you're hearing him with all these characters. And again, not that that is a bad thing. I don't think there was a flaw in this book. I think it was perfect. That's why it's 5 stars. This is definitely a series I'm going to continue. I'm almost finished with the second book. I have like, I don't know, 3 chapters left. I'm so close. I already bought the third, and I think I'm going to buy all of them in hardcover. I regret not buying this one in hardcover, so the third I bought hardback. I think I might repurchase this and the second because I want them all to match, and the hardcover, they're like much bigger and like thicker and yummy. And this is not a new book by any means. If you have not read this book and you like fast-paced, high-stakes, Hunger Game-esque, corrupt government, like heartache, great character, and really cool world building, you will love this book. And I'm so excited to see where the story goes. I've had this book on my like TBR shelf forever, and I'm so excited that it can now go on my shelf with like the books that I've read. I've like wanted to transfer it to my read books forever. Now I finally can. So this is my stack for January. Not a terrible month. We had some winners here. We ended the month strong, but definitely some disappointing books within this month, but still not sorry I read these books. And I'm really excited about the books I'm reading this month. I already have a 5-star for February. I cannot wait to talk about it. So please stay tuned for future read wrap-ups for this month or for this year. Thanks so much for hanging out with me while I talk about my January reads. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.